Hi there, Chris Kellett with 123 Muse, and we're going to now take a look at our new Slider One Pro unit. So let's take a look at, first of all, what's in the package. So once you've downloaded it, you'll get the Slider One package. I've placed it on my desktop here, and you'll see we have 3 folders and our Muse library. So first off, we have the Pro Units runtimes. We'll have a look at that in a minute, but that's scripts that are used to run the actual animations. Then we have some sample assets in here so you can test the unit out straight away before you create any more assets. We have the slides PSD, so we've created a template here with artboards in Photoshop so that you can just bring your images in there and get them just to the right size. You can use pretty much any size image you want, however, for speed of the actual unit itself and for proportionality, it may be a good idea to use these artboards. And then finally, we have the actual Muse library itself. So let's go ahead and install that. I'm going to right click on here and open with, because I've got the pre-release, I'm going to open with the full release app. And in our libraries now, if I scroll down here to Pro Units, Slider One, here we go. We'll see that we have our cover scroll. So we use that for creating a full width, full height slider. We'll show you how to use that in a minute. The Pro Unit script loader, again, we'll show you that in a minute. Our slider page element and the Slider One text styles. Now the text styles actually load up the paragraph styles onto the page. Let's just go ahead and see what happens there. So what I'm going to do at the moment is that if I delete all the unused styles from here, so we've just got these styles here, don't worry about these ones here, nothing to do with this, but let's just go ahead with that. Okay, and we'll go back to our library and then go back to our Pro unit and let's drag that on the page. Okay, so we have this on the page. I'm going to put it in the grey area around the workboard around the page, and if we click on this heading here and then go to our paragraph styles, we can see that it's using the paragraph style of PRH1, this is PRH2, and then this is PR buttons. Now this will control the text styles of the slider unit, and any other Pro units that we create will use a similar methodology. The beauty of this is that you can change all your typography using Muse's built-in tools, so you don't have to have a massive menu in the options palette to allow you to change the typography. And we can change not just the font styles, headings, colors, but also line height and spacing and so on. So that's what that's there for. So we're going to place that on the page first. Then we'll go ahead and grab our Pro unit here, slider, and drag it onto the page. Just take a moment to render, and there we go, we have it rendered onto the page. And you can see that the headings and styles are matching here. However, this will just preview the font size, color, and spacing. It won't preview the font, so if you chose, like for instance, a script type font, it wouldn't show that until you hit either preview or preview in the browser, and that's when the unit goes back and grabs the code. So it'll make your pages work a lot faster that way as well, because whenever you're making changes, it's not having to render those fonts out. So if you're concerned that, hang on a minute, I chose this font and I'm not seeing it updated here, just take a look at the preview. Okay, so let's just preview this as it is with no images, nothing else. So we'll preview this in the page, and we can see we have these nice animations going, and we've used a tint background just so you can see it in place. Let's make it full width. So I'm going to go into our responsive, our resize here, and go to stretch to browser. Let's preview that again. And we can see now everything is positioned correctly, right and left. Now let's load up some content. So looking at our widget, we have a unique name first. This is so that you can use multiple versions of this widget on the page. But in order to differentiate the content in each one, if you give each unit a unique name, then the code will know the difference between one and another, so you don't get the content mixed up between them. Let's take a look at our setup options here. First of all, we've got our runtimes URL. Now, just to explain the runtimes, basically Pro units use a set of JavaScripts that have common code to them. So things like the code that manages responsiveness, that manages waypoints, that manages the animations. It's a common set of scripts, a bit like jQuery. So in order for these animations to work without having to have a huge amount of JavaScript for every single one, we have these runtimes that are pulled into the page, and then the Pro units use that runtime code with some of their own code to create the animations. And so we have a common set of coding principles across all of the different widgets. This also means that once you have the runtimes loaded up onto the page, it doesn't matter how many Pro units, different ones that you add onto the page as we add more to the list, they will only use that single set of scripts, so you don't have to keep calling additional scripts. So that's what the runtimes are. Now currently they're running on, we've set up a CDN for these scripts that we call Muse Engine, and that's currently where these are running, so that you don't have to load up these scripts to start off with, and so that everything works straight away. However, we will recommend that you load your own scripts for when you go into production. So could you use Muse Engine? You could, but we'd rather you didn't. And it will also slow down your speed, plus you've got cross-domain incompatibility issues sometimes with some servers, so you will be wanting to run your own. But we'll show you how to do that in a minute. For the time being, just all you need to know is that's what that's for. Then we have our left and right arrows, so let's go ahead and load those up. So in our sample assets here, we have SVG arrows, and we've got two sets. Let's load up the left arrow and then the right arrow. And we can see that those have now loaded up. We could try, for instance, we've put two sets here. This one's a rounded arrow, and you can see, so, but you can create your own. You can create your own SVGs, PNGs, whatever you want, and load them up there. Then we have our slide transition. So currently, if we go to our preview, you'll see that we have this nice left and right, very smooth, nice left and right animation. We can also change these animations from the previous and next navigation. So we can say, let's do a push from bottom to top and then push from top to bottom. So if we go back to our preview here and we hit refresh, we can see now that we have this type of animation going on instead. We have a couple of other animations in there as well. So you can have fade, you can have instant, so that'll just jump from one to another. Crossfade and swap's kind of fun as well. So hit preview. And I think I only put it one way. There we go, yeah. So swap just swaps one across the other like that. So you may have seen that in PowerPoint, for instance, or Keynote. Okay, so that's the slide. So we'll put them back to push left, right, and right to left. There we go. Then we have our transition speed. We'll leave that as is, but we also then can change the position of the content. So we could have ours left, center, or right, and everything will switch. So let's say, for instance, let's put it left here, hit preview, and all of our content is now fitting to the right, and everything slides in great. So we don't have to, we can modify the position of the text content based on the image we're using, for example. Okay, so that's that done. So we've done our setup there. Now our slide images. So we've separated the images from the content to just make it a step-by-step process. And we have this image tint here. And the image tint sits over the top of the images and darkens the images, especially useful. You don't have to have it switched on. You could switch it to fully transparent if you want, but we found that sometimes especially if you're using white text, you could end up with the text not showing up, especially if you have a light image. So that's why we've put that tint in there. So let's go ahead and load up some files. So in our sample assets here, we have our slide images. So let's go ahead and load those images up. These are from plexels.com, which is a great source for free imagery. So there we go, we have our, and we're going to just up this tint a little bit. As you could see, that the text wasn't quite standing out as much as we'd like, so we're just going to turn it up to 4. There we go. Now let's preview this slider. Great, so everything's running fine. Now you can see this really nice effect that we have when you hover over the left and right buttons. You see the next slide popping up, which you wouldn't see without the images there. So you can see that nice preview of the slide that's coming up. We have that nice movement on the arrow there, and as each slide transition happens, our text comes in nice and neatly. So it's a very nice subtle animation. You can resize this to whatever you like. So let's just pull this down a little bit to, let's say for instance about there. Let's hit preview. So you can see here now on our preview, we have the slider there. Now let's take a look at what it does responsive wise. So as we bring the slider down, we can see that we've got our nice left and right next and previous slider previews here. As we bring it down, we'll see the jump. There's the jump, and we'll see that we've switched off now in this. This is for a tablet. We've switched off those next and previous because they're activated by hover, which doesn't work great in touch. Then we come down in size and we'll jump again, and now we're in mobile, and you can see that on the page here as well, because we're using a responsive Muse here. You can see that the slider now has changed in size, and we've also changed the size of the content here to match with mobile. So let's bring it back up again, and we can see that the text content jumps, and then we go up to the larger size, and we can scale as much as we like now, and we can see that those units will scale nicely. Okay, so we have our widget here. We've made it full width. We know it's already responsive. We know it works with breakpoints. What next? Well, imagine now that you wanted to modify the text. So that's the next thing that we want to do. So we've got these headings that we popped on the page, and as we said earlier, these won't show up in your preview or when you publish because the widget switches them off. So let's take a look and see what else we can do. Let's look at, we've added the slides, we've added the slide images. Now let's take a look at the slide content. So we can see that our headings here, we've got your heading here goes here. So let's put welcome to the #1 site, for example. And the widget will refresh itself. Well, let's just change that to welcome. Okay, so that's nice. Now we'll just put to the #1 site. Okay, so that's slide 1, and you can do the same for slide 2 and slide 3. Okay, so that's slide content. The next thing is buttons. Now you can switch buttons on and off, so you could just have a text slider. Oh, and let me just say as well on the slide content, if we wanted the slide to just not have any content at all, so we didn't want an H2 there, we could just easily modify that by just removing that text content. So that's pretty easy. So let's close this down. So we can switch buttons on and off. Let's switch the buttons on, and we have 6 different styles. So we've got filled rounded, then we've got ghost rounded, we've got square, we also have ghost square, and then pill, and of course pill square. Okay, so that's our buttons. Now the colors here, so we can, when we're in filled or filled rounded, we can change the radius. So we may just want that to, let's say for instance 4 or something smaller, maybe 3, so just a very slight radius on it, or you could take it up to maybe a higher radius. So let's say we took it up to 10, but that you can modify the filled rounded radius. All of the other ones are set, so they're switched off. Okay, so now we want to change the button color, so we'll change that to, let's say for instance this red, and we want to use, let's use the blue on hover. And notice when we go to a ghost rounded, you'll see that the text and the text color and the border color are using the button color. So when you're on a ghosted button, if you wanted to change that to all white, then you would change that color there, okay? So that allows us to have these nice ghosted buttons. So let's put this down to 5. Oh, I quite like the pill ghost anyway, so let's go with that. Okay, so there's our button. So we've decided on what our button style is. Now let's do our button content. So let's have a click here, and then we can put our URL in here. We could either put it to an internal page, obviously, or we could put it to an external page wherever we wanted it to go. So that is the control of the actual unit itself. But as I said, let's go on to the text now. So closing that all down, so we're all happy with this. But let's pull over our headings over here, doesn't matter where you put them. Let's go in and select the text here, and let's go for let's say for instance, let's go for a Proxima Nova thin on here, and we will go for let's say a Proxima Nova, let's go for a bold on this one. Now, if we click on our paragraphs here, we can see that we have the little plus button indicating that it needs to be redefined. So we can just redefine that style, and we're just going to redefine that style as well. Let's change the button text as well. Let's change that to the Proxima Nova light. So we go to Proxima Nova thin as it is, and go back to our paragraph styles and redefine, or we can use the redefine icon down here. Okay, so notice it hasn't updated those changes yet, but what we're going to do is go to our buttons. We're just going to switch them on and off, and that'll just re-render the widget. So there we can see that although the fonts aren't actually exactly the same as this, we can see that the weights have changed. So let's preview this now, and this is when the actual styles will kick in. So now we have our nice Proxima Nova style applied. So what else can we do? Well, let's go on and change the text size. So let's go to 72 on this, and we'll go, let's say for instance this one, we're going to go to let's say 24, and we're also going to push the button down a bit. So we can do that by just increasing this, and this will push the button text down here. And then let's just redefine that. So let's hit the redefine, so we can either clear the overrides, which we don't want, or redefine. Here we go. And now let's preview that again. And you can see that everything's changed now. Oh, we didn't update the heading, did we? So let's redefine that as well. And preview. And we can see our text is larger now and everything's moved down. Plus the button has also moved down as well, which is great. So you can see that we can control the positioning of the text by using the actual text styling in here. Now, if we went in and changed our content, so let's change our content to be left aligned, and then we hit preview, we can see that all of the spacing and everything has stayed in place. We have just altered the positioning of the actual content, so that works really, really well. So you've got the flexibility of using the typography that you want with Muse tools, but the knowledge that the widget is going to perform correctly with the different responsive breakpoints. Okay, so last thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and show you how we can make a cover slider. So you know those sliders where you have the image and the slider comes on, it fills the screen, but you can scroll past the slider and see the content. And as you move the browsers, change the browser's height and width, it will change with it. So what we've done here is we've selected our slider, and then if we go into our graphic styles, we've applied a graphic style called Scale This, which is, it doesn't matter what it's called, but in this particular instance, we've called it Scale This, and it hasn't got any colors or anything applied to it. It's just a neutral style, and it's just so that we can add a class to this widget so that then our other widgets can pick it up. So you'll see here that we've got the cover scroll widget here, which is actually in your library. So if you haven't installed it before, we've included it in the Pro Units, the Slider One package. So we just drag that onto the page, and all that we have to do is match the name of in here to whatever we've called the graphic style for this widget. And now when we preview this, let's preview in the browser this time. You'll see our slider fills the page, and we can resize it however we like, and yet we can still scroll past the content. So if we go all the way down, let's jump down to mobile. So we're still full, and we've still got all of our content here. So we've got that nice scrolling action. So this creates a really lovely cover for your site, and then also allows people to see more content below. So that works really well and really simple. The next thing we're going to show you is how to load up the scripts using the scripts loader, but we'll show you that in another video. So that's the end of this video, and I hope you've enjoyed looking at this new widget. Take a look at our super fast widget, super fast implementation of this, and we'll show you just how quickly you can put a really cool slider on your page in one of our other videos on the page as well. So thanks for watching.